All right, so let's dive into something that I know a lot of people find both exciting and a little bit intimidating.
Okay.
Learning English as a second language.
Right.
We're going to go beyond the usual, practice makes perfect advice today.
Sure.
You've given us this YouTube video as a starting point.
Yeah.
And, it features Laura, who's brand new to a company, and she's really struggling to present in English.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's something a lot of us can relate to, that feeling of vulnerability when you're trying to express yourself in a new language.
Absolutely.
But what's really intriguing is the way the video goes on to connect these personal stories like Laura's to some really insightful learning strategies that I think would be great to kind of unpack together.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to dig into there.
Yeah.
What I thought was so fascinating is that it doesn't shy away from showing her early mistakes.
Right.
Like she mixes up terms. She says shopping ability instead of online shopping cart.
Right.
And easy navigation when she meant user-friendly navigation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These slip-ups are so common. But I think they demonstrate a key point about language acquisition, which is that we create what's called an interlanguage.
I see.
It's kind of like a stepping stone between our native language and the one we're learning.
Okay.
And it's full of these creative but sometimes inaccurate attempts to bridge the gap.
And it's in those moments of imperfection that her colleague Helen really shines.
Oh, yeah. She's great.
Rather than criticizing.
Yeah.
She offers genuine support and suggests these simple practices, like even just ordering coffee or tea in English.
Right.
I love that approach because it really emphasizes building confidence through those everyday interactions.
It's a brilliant strategy, actually.
Yeah.
By starting with those low-stakes situations, learners can gradually immerse themselves in the language without the pressure of a formal presentation.
Right.
And I think what we often forget is that our brains need time to process and internalize new language patterns. So consistent, manageable exposure is way more effective than trying to cram vocabulary all at once.
That's so true.
And if we connect this back to the video's later points about learning styles, it reinforces this idea that finding methods that fit our individual needs and preferences is crucial.
Speaking of learning styles, the video creator shares their own experience of initially feeling overwhelmed by trying to memorize tons of vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
And they eventually realized a more sustainable approach was needed.
Yeah.
I'm curious, for those of us who may have fallen into that cramming trap, what are some alternatives that you've seen be effective?
Well, the video touches on a few key strategies like setting realistic goals and finding ways to incorporate English into your daily routine.
Okay.
But let's go a bit deeper.
Okay.
One method that can be incredibly effective, particularly for visual learners, is to label everyday objects around your home with their English names.
Oh.
It creates a constant visual reminder and helps solidify those vocabulary words in your mind.
That's a great tip. It's like turning your house into a giant flashcard deck.
Exactly.
I can see how that could make a big difference, especially for someone who's just starting out.
Yeah.
It's all about finding those creative ways to make the language come alive in your everyday life.
Absolutely. And as you progress, you can challenge yourself further by, for instance, changing your phone's language settings to English.
Oh.
It can be a bit jarring at first.
Right.
But it forces you to navigate through menus and apps in English.
Right.
Which is a fantastic way to reinforce your learning.
Yeah.
But again, it's important to be mindful of your individual learning style and comfort level.
Sure.
For someone who's still grappling with the basics, this might be too overwhelming.
Right.
It's all about finding what works for you.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in what should work. But the reality is that everyone learns differently.
Right.
Some people thrive in a structured classroom environment, while others might prefer language exchange apps or online communities where they can connect with other learners.
What's interesting is that the video doesn't just focus on individual learning strategies.
Yeah.
It highlights the power of community.
Yeah.
The creator emphasizes the importance of finding a language partner, like Helen was for Laura.
Right.
Or joining online forums where you can practice with others.
Right.
Why do you think that social aspect is so important in the learning process?
I think it boils down to a few things.
Okay.
Firstly, having a supportive community creates a sense of belonging and accountability.
Sure.
It helps you stay motivated and on track with your goals, but it goes beyond just motivation.
Okay.
When you engage with others, you're exposed to different accents, vocabulary, and cultural nuances that you might not encounter in a textbook or a language learning app. It's like taking your learning from the classroom to the real world.
And There's a certain level of empathy that comes from learning alongside others.
Totally.
Sharing those struggles, celebrating small victories together.
Right.
It creates a sense of camaraderie. That can make the entire journey much more enjoyable and ultimately more successful.
That's so true. Learning a language doesn't have to be a solitary endeavor.
Yeah.
Embracing that sense of community can really amplify the learning experience.
For sure.
And help you stay engaged for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to Laura's transformation.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's remarkable to see how her confidence blossoms over time.
Right.
In the beginning, she could barely string a sentence together.
Right.
But after a few months of consistent effort, she's using more complex vocabulary and grammar correctly.
It's amazing.
The video even shows her client praising her improved English skills.
Wow.
It's a powerful reminder that while those initial stages can be challenging, the rewards are well worth the effort.
It's easy to get discouraged when you're first starting out.
Oh, absolutely.
But Laura's journey really underscores the fact that language learning isn't about overnight fluency.
Right.
It's about embracing the process, those small incremental steps that lead to significant progress over time.
One aspect of that process that I find particularly intriguing is the concept of fossilization.
Fossilization?
Yeah, it's a linguistic term.
Okay.
That describes how certain errors can become ingrained in our interlanguage.
Yeah, okay.
Even as we progress in other areas.
I see.
Think of it like a groove in a vinyl record.
Okay.
The more we repeat those errors, the deeper that groove becomes,
right,
making them harder to correct.
So how do we avoid those grooves, those fossilized errors?
Right.
Is it just a matter of being super careful in the beginning stages?
Well,
or are there specific techniques we can use to kind of break those bad habits?
Well, being mindful of accuracy from the start is definitely important.
Yeah.
It's equally crucial to cultivate an awareness of our own errors.
Okay.
And this is where feedback from others, whether it's a language partner, a teacher, or even a language learning app,
right,
can be invaluable.
Yeah.
By identifying and addressing those fossilized errors, we can smooth out those grooves and refine our pronunciation and grammar over time.
That makes sense. It's like having a second pair of eyes, or rather ears,
right,
to help us catch those subtle mistakes that we might not even realize we're making.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that feedback, even when it highlights areas for improvement, is a gift.
It's a gift that keeps on giving because by addressing those errors early on,
right,
we prevent them from becoming deeply ingrained habits that are harder to break later.
Right.
And speaking of habits,
yeah,
the video emphasizes the importance of creating a consistent learning routine.
Right.
It's not about spending hours cramming vocabulary lists.
Right.
It's about finding those pockets of time throughout your day where you can engage with the language in a meaningful way.
I've always been curious about this idea of dead time versus alive time.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to language learning.
It's a brilliant distinction.
Could you elaborate on that a bit? Because I think that's a concept a lot of people struggle with.
So dead time is essentially the time we spend passively consuming content in our native language.
Okay.
Scrolling through social media, watching TV, or even just daydreaming.
Right.
Alive time, on the other hand, is when we actively engage with the language we're learning.
Got it.
It could be reading an English article, listening to a podcast, having a conversation with a language partner, or even just thinking in English.
Right.
The key is to transform that dead time into a live time.
Okay.
To actively seek out opportunities to immerse yourself in the language throughout your day.
So instead of just scrolling through your social media feed in your native language,
right,
you could switch to following English language accounts.
Exactly.
Or joining online communities where English is the primary mode of communication.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift.
Yeah.
But it creates a more immersive experience.
For sure.
And keeps you engaged with the language in a more organic way.
Absolutely. It's about making those small adjustments to your daily routine that over time can have a significant impact on your fluency.
Right.
And one of the simplest yet most effective ways to do that is to change the language settings on your phone to English.
Oh, yeah.
Video mentions this as a strategy.
Yeah.
And while it might sound daunting for beginners,
sure,
it's an incredibly powerful way to immerse yourself in the language.
You know, I actually tried that a few months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I was surprised by how quickly I adapted.
That's great.
At first, it was a bit disorienting.
Yeah.
But after a few days, it became second nature.
Wow.
And I found myself naturally thinking in English more often simply because I was constantly interacting with the language on my phone.
That's fantastic. It's a testament to the brain's remarkable ability to adapt and absorb new information.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that even though you might initially feel a bit lost or frustrated, that discomfort is actually a sign that your brain is working hard to make new connections and solidify those language patterns.
So it's like a mental workout for your language muscles.
Exactly.
The more you challenge yourself, the stronger those muscles become. Right.
And that brings us back to the importance of finding what works for you individually.
Absolutely.
Because what might feel challenging and exciting for one person could be completely overwhelming for another.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning.
Right.
The key is to experiment, to explore different methods, and to discover what resonates with your unique learning style and personality.
Yeah.
Some people thrive in a structured classroom setting with clear goals and deadlines. Others might prefer a more self-directed approach where they can set their own pace and explore areas that interest them most.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that learning a language can be an emotional roller coaster.
Oh, for sure.
There will be days when you feel like you're making incredible progress.
Yes.
And other days when you hit a plateau.
Totally.
Or even feel like you're taking a step back.
Absolutely.
How can we navigate those ups and downs in a way that keeps us motivated and engaged for the long haul? That's a brilliant question, and it's something the video touches on indirectly when it emphasizes the importance of celebrating small victories.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of fluency, you know?
Right.
That we forget to acknowledge the progress we're making along the way.
You're absolutely right. I think back to that moment in the video when Laura nails the phrase online shopping cart in her second presentation.
Oh, yeah.
It's a seemingly small win.
Right.
But the pride on her face is undeniable.
Those moments are crucial.
Yeah.
They reinforce the fact that we're moving in the right direction, and they fuel our motivation to keep going.
Totally.
It's not just about reaching the destination. It's about savoring the journey and acknowledging those milestones,
Right.
no matter how small they may seem.
So what are some practical ways we can celebrate those small victories?
Whoa.
Do we need to throw a party every time we learn a new verb tense?
A party might be a bit much,
Okay.
but the key is to find what feels rewarding for you. It could be as simple as sharing your accomplishment with a friend, treating yourself to a favorite activity, or even just taking a moment to acknowledge your progress and give yourself a mental high five.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about shifting our mindset from focusing solely on what we haven't achieved to appreciating how far we've come.
Exactly.
It's a reminder to be kind to ourselves throughout the process and to celebrate those wins, big or small.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a time I was struggling with the French subjunctive move.
Right.
It felt like this insurmountable obstacle.
Right.
Until one day I was able to use it correctly in a conversation.
That's awesome.
I was so excited. I literally did a little dance of victory.
And it's a perfect example. It's about finding those moments of joy and letting them fuel your passion for learning.
Totally.
And I think it's important to remember that learning English isn't just about mastering grammar rules or expanding your vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's about opening doors to new cultures, perspectives, and experiences.
It's like gaining a new lens through which to view the world.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to the video's overarching message, which really resonated with me. Learning English is a journey, not a destination.
Couldn't agree more. It's a continuous process of exploration, discovery, and growth.
Right.
And while there will undoubtedly be challenges along the way,
Yeah.
the rewards far outweigh the effort.
So to all the language learners out there, whether you're just starting out or you've been on this journey for a while, remember to celebrate those small victories, embrace the challenges, and find joy in the process.
And never underestimate the power of community.
Yes.
Connect with fellow learners, share your experiences, support each other through the ups and downs, and celebrate each other's successes, because together we can make this journey even more rewarding.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of learning English as a second language. We hope this conversation has sparked some new insights, rekindled your motivation, and perhaps even inspired you to try something new on your language learning journey.
Remember, every step forward is a step in the right direction. So keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep celebrating those wins we're cheering you on every step of the way.